Hey, what's up? How you doing? It's your friend Phil here, project management trainer and coach. Hope you're doing great today. So today we're talking about a process in a different knowledge area, cost management. Cost management is all about estimating how much each task or activity will cost and then rolling that up into a final total amount. And then when you get the total amount, which is the budget, you spread the budget over the time periods it needs to be spent in. And as you're spending the money, you are also tracking your expenditures to make sure they are according to the plan, to make sure you're not going over. So what makes cost management challenging is not really the putting the budget together. It's really, for a lot of people, controlling the budget, controlling the cost, as PMI calls it. So you determine the budget, but then the next thing is to control cost. Now, we won't be talking about control cost until much later on in this series. But for now, we're going to be talking about the first thing that you do in any knowledge area. And the first thing that you do is... I'm not sure you actually told me what it is. What's the first thing you do in cost management? Or in any knowledge area? The first thing you do in the world of the PMI is plan. Okay? The only exception to this is in integration, where you develop the project charter first, and in stakeholder management, where you identify stakeholders first. So the first thing you do in cost management is called plan cost management. That's really the center of our focus today in 40 Days to PMP and CPM exam success. So, plan cost management is all about developing a plan for how to determine your budget, how to, even before that, estimate each activity's cost, and ultimately how to control cost. Some firms control cost by looking at actual versus planned, actual cost versus planned cost. Is that really enough for the kind of projects you manage? In some firms, that's not enough. Some firms, you have to think about earned value management. But the journey does not start when you get to spending the money. The journey starts even before you spend the money. You know, the journey starts before you estimate the activities. In the world of the PMI, it starts here in planning how to do all these things. How am I going to estimate the cost? How am I going to determine the budget? How am I going to control the cost? That is what this is all about. Okay? Now, in a previous series, I talked about, a previous knowledge area rather, I talked about how there is a recurring theme in the PMBOK guide across time, cost, scope, and risk. And that recurring theme is really the inputs to plan cost management, plan schedule management, and plan scope management. So let's hear it from you. The inputs to plan cost management are, I am listening. You should know this by now. If you don't know this, it tells me you've not been following the days in a dedicated fashion, because I've beaten this one to death, haven't I? I've talked about it so many times. The recurring inputs to plan cost, plan schedule, plan risk, plan scope. For the third time. The project charter, project management plan, EEFs, and OPAs. Those four are recurring. Project charter, project management plan, EEFs, and OPAs. All right. What about one recurring tool and technique in these four? Do you remember? Expert judgment and meetings. And what is the recurring one across time, cost, and risk? If you guessed analytical techniques, you are correct. If you didn't know it, go back to the drawing board. Because these recurring themes, they're going to save you a lot of time, you know, as you study for the exam, okay? The reason why we have analytical techniques in cost, think about it, it's numeric, it's numbers driven, time is numbers driven, cost is numbers driven, scope is not. So you do not find analytical techniques as a tool and technique in scope. In risk, you'll find it because it's numeric as well, driven by numbers. Quantitative risk analysis comes up, okay, in this area. So in the area of risk, but in terms of cost, you want to think about the meetings, expert judgment, analytical techniques, and the output from these planning processes, plan schedule, plan scope, plan cost, plan risk, is one thing usually, except in scope. And if what I'm saying is just like Greek to you, catch up on the days, folks. Another question, which process in planning do you get two plans? Which planning process do you get two plans? Now there are two options. Do you remember one of them? If you do not remember that from plan scope management, you get the scope management plan and the requirements management plan, I want to challenge you to go back to the days you skipped, because I covered this in lots of detail, okay? So, the plan you get from here is your cost management plan, and that's pretty much the end of the story. Thank you for your audience today, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Make sure you look at all of those cost management definitions below. Make sure you answer those open-ended questions, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye for now.